Okay, I would now like to go over the back, setting up the back, the spine. And for this, we're going to need to load our script from Rigging 101. And it's a really nice script. You can go down to your script editor down here at the bottom right. And if you've downloaded the script, it should come with instructions on how to actually use these. Let's see here. I'll close all that out. So you want to go to load script, and you want to place the script into your scripts folder, Maya's default script folder. However, I use my project folder, and I include it into the project that I'm working on. So for instance, this is my current project. So I'm going to go to scripts, and here's the Rigging 101 wire controllers MEL script. So you just select it, you go to open, and here's the script. So if you really want, you can investigate and see what this script does, but for the most part, we are just going to select all and hit enter on our number keypad. And what that's going to do is it's going to load the script and load all of the processes into the memory. And then you want to go to the very top of your script and go to the area, the comment section where it says how to use, and select everything inside the quotes. And what you can do is you can drag that up to your shelf, and it will create a shelf button if you select MEL. And there we go. So you can close your script editor, and now you can just click your shelf button and it'll bring your script up. So with this, what it does is it creates shapes, it creates curves, control curves for your rig. So you can create triangle, square, so on and so forth. I'll let you investigate what each of these do. I have a select few that I choose to use repeatedly, but you have your footprint, hands, vision, specials such as arrows on ball, which we will use for our back, cogs. There's also cube, which I will use for my character's spine, but we want to make sure that that is loaded so that we can just easily select it and bring it up when we need it. So for right now, we are going to go into our front view and add a control curve that represents our hip area. So if we bring up our script and select the prisms and cube, it will place it down here at the bottom. Just bring it up to where our hip is, right about there. And then you right click and go to control vertex and select the bottom two and scale them out like so. And if that happens where you're trying to select your control vertices and you accidentally select your joints, that's because your joints are higher up on Maya's selection priority list. And to get around that without having to get rid of your joints, you can just go up here and deselect your joints, and that way you can't select your joints temporarily. So while we're adjusting our control curve, we won't have to look at, or we won't have to accidentally select our joints. So I want to create a box that goes roughly around the hip bone, but I want to keep it under our next spine joint. So something like that. Then I'm going to go into my side view, go up, and do the same thing for my side. And you do want to make it so that they stick a little bit away from your character so that it's easy to select, like that. You can see the box around it. There you go. And then I'm going to go to my front view, duplicate that, move it up, like so. Duplicate that, and move it up. I'm going to scale it up so that it takes up my chest area, like so. Oops. And then I want to adjust my control curve to match my chest, like so. Go to your side view, adjust these, like so. Then come back here and adjust your midsection. Come to your front view and adjust these to match. Like so. Okay, so now I want to come in here and rename these controls. So we have center hip control, center, and really you don't have to have, you know, the center in there. It's just my naming convention that I use. I keep everything so I know where the orientation is at all times. But here we have center abs control, and lastly center chest control. Okay, so then we want to freeze our transformations and center our pivot. Same thing with these guys. There we go. Okay, so now our pivot should be in the center. What I will do is snap my pivot to the center of the joint. Turn off our mesh for that. Same thing with this one. Actually, that one is in the center of my bone, so that works. I'm happy with that. This one, however, I will move down ever so slightly so it's in the center of the chest. That's about right. And go to my side view, move it back. Same thing with this guy. Move him back. Okay. So now what we want to do is we want to select our parent, shift select our child, which in this case is going to be our root joint or our hip joint, and go up to constraint and orient constraint option box. And we want to reset our settings and hit, oops, my apologies, I forgot to check off the maintain offset. So we select the parent, shift select the child, and go to orient option box and make sure that the maintain offset is checked. And now hit apply. So now what you get is if you rotate, you can rotate your hips. Make him do a little dance. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing to the other joints. And orient. And here, orient. So now we should get rotations in each of these joints, which we do. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is take our top control box and parent it to their bottom control box. So we select the child first, then the parent, and hit P on our keyboard. P as in parent. I'm going to select the middle box, shift select the bottom box, and hit P as in parent. So now what we get is when we select the bottom one, we can rotate everything. Select the middle one, we rotate all of the top, and then we can just select the top by itself. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the colors of my controls to the saturated red so that they all match my color scheme, so that everything is easy to see, like so. And one thing I forgot to do, and you have to kind of forgive me, it is 5 o'clock in the morning and I've been up all night working on these guys. One thing I forgot to do is set up the pull vector for the knee. What that's going to do is give us control to determine where the knee points. So when he goes to squat, for instance, he's not, oops, grab that joint, there we go. When he squats, his knees don't buckle in or even flip backwards on accident. So what we want to do is create curves for controls for these guys. You can easily go in here and create and find a curve that you like. However, I personally, for my pull vectors, I like to use text. So I create an L. I'm going to my front view here, center my pivot, and I'm going to snap it to the knee with V as in Victor. Go to my side view and I am going to pull it out that far. You want to pull it out far enough to where if the knee bends at its maximum allowance, it won't go past your pull vector control. So we have that. We could probably even scale this down a bit so it's not so it's not as in the way. And before I set this up, I want to create my other curve, which is going to be, create my other curve, which is going to be R for right, apply, and for R, you kind of have to cheat a little bit. Okay, and so for R, for R, there's actually two curves. There's the inside and then there's the outside. So to fix that, we select both of them and we go to our hotbox by holding down space and go to Edit Curves and Attach Curves. And we're just using the default values for that tool. And that's going to create this little shape here. And so inside, you can go in and select those two. But for right now, I am just going to select my curve, go to my hotbox, Edit Curves, and then open and close curves when it works. Oops. There we go. Okay, so I need to get rid of these two guys right here. This one and that little guy, which I can do easily enough by moving him out of the way. And then now I can go to Edit Curves, Open and Close Curves. And that's going to close it off and still keep our R shape. So it's one complete curve, which is exactly what we want. So we snap it, scale it down to match our L, go into our side view, and pull it out. Maybe go into our top view here. I'm not finding my curve. So now the issue is I need to flip them. So the right is on the right hand side and the left is on the left hand side, but that's no big deal. Go to my front view, snap, and snap. There we go. Okay, so the next thing you want to do is go to your channel box, bring back your IK handles, and uncheck the reference. So you want to select your ankle IK, shift select your control, and go to skeleton, constrain, and then down to pull vector. There's no need for the option box because the option just controls the weight of it, and you can easily do that later on. So you're just going to hit, stream pull vector. What is Maya saying? Target curve is not valid. Okay, so this is exactly what we want. So if you remember, we left our IKs as an SC, single chain. So if Maya does give you that error that you see down here, let me do this again. You see down here, error line 0, target curve not valid, targets must be of type IK handle. That is because your IK handle needs to be a rotate plane solver IK. So to change that, and you can do that at any time without really messing anything up, is by going to your attribute editor and going to your IK solver attributes and going to IK solver and changing this to RP. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that to my right hand side. There we go. RP. There we go. And one last thing, I want to freeze my transformations on my two controls. Make sure you always do that. And then I want to select my IK, shift select my control curve, go up to constrain, pull vector. And it's still saying that. Why are you still saying that? RP. My apologies. I had my selection order reversed. So you want to select your curve. Like I said, it's really late. Forgive me. Shift select your IK, then go up to pull vector. There we go. Okay, so now what we can do is rotate our knee. So we can determine the pointing of our knee. There we go. So now that we have that done, we just want to go in and name our controls. We can delete the histories on them. That shouldn't really affect anything. And then I just want to go in here and rename them, which I will do. I will colorize them, and then I will I'll pause the video for that, and I'll come back and we'll work on the rest of the spine. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is create a realistic back bending motion similar to this. Similar to this right here, where if we bend, he actually bends at his entire back. Or if we twist, he has a nice twisting motion. Or if we bend side to side, he has a nice bending motion in his back. To do that, we're going to create another control curve back here that is going to have custom attributes that do that for us. So we're going to open up our Rigging 101 wire controller script, and again, as in the previous video, if you don't have this, you can go to rigging101.com and download it. It's completely free. So I want to go to my special tab and select arrow on ball is the one that I usually use for this. I'm going to move it up, and scale it up so it's easy to see. Something like that. Okay, place it towards the center of the back so it makes a little bit more sense. And I'm going to name it center back control. And I'm going to call this the IK control. Okay. I want to delete my history, freeze transformations, and center my pivot. Now, I won't be doing anything with the translation and all of that, so we can pretty much just select all of that and lock and hide, because we won't actually be moving it. What we're going to do is add attributes. But for right now, I am going to change my color to red to keep everything consistent. Okay, so now I want to add my back control attributes. Okay, so now we select our back IK control, and we go to our channel box, edit, and add attribute. And the attributes we want to add are back underscore rot underscore x, and we want to make sure it's a float, and we're just going to leave the default values. Add back underscore rot y and back underscore rot underscore z. Okay, now we can close those. And now we need to actually make these attributes that we created do something. And to do that, we are going to invoke the animate tab and go down to set driven keys and then go to set. And what that's going to do is bring up this pop-up window here. And what we want to do is select the bottommost back control here, the hip controller. Then we want to shift select our ab controller and then shift select our chest controller. And then we want to select the load driver. And that's going to load all of these into our set driven key. Or actually, I'm sorry, we want to load them into our driven. So let's do that again. My mistake. Driven. There we go. Then we want to make their controller the driver, like that. Okay. So now we can go in here and select all of these, and we can select the rotation in X and then the rotation in back rot X in our back controller. Set a key. Select rotation in Y. Select the back rot Y in our back controller and set a key. And then set the back rot Z and rotate Z, like so. And that's going to set a key for the position in 0. So then what we can do is we can go back to X, select X, go over to our channels, select X over here, and then position X where we want our maximum bending to go. Now that looks a little fake. You can adjust these later on a little bit and set new keys. But I'm going to go about right there, a little bit more hyperextension than what I think my character could possibly feasibly do. And I want to set a key. Then I want to go to the other most extreme and oops, my apologies. Undo that. My apologies. So I want to do that. Go to my utmost extreme, select all of my driven, go to X, set the most extreme, find the number, copy it, which is going to be negative 50.42, copy that, go to my back controller, and paste that value into my back controller. That's going to snap these guys back, but that's no big deal. We just select them again, go over here, paste that value, and then hit key. Again, it's a little late in the evening, or in the morning I should say. Okay, so now what we want to do is choose our driven again, find what our maximum positive value is, which is about right there, copy that, go to our back control, paste that in. Then we want to select our driven, paste it in again, and then hit key. Okay, so now if we go to our back controller and we select our back rotation, we can rotate back and forth, and it looks beautiful. Okay, so now we want to do the same thing to our y-axis and our z-axis. So we just select our driven, select the y, and select the maximum twisting, which is close to about 180 or so. I'm just going to go about, and right there, maybe about right there, and twist almost all the way around. So copy that, paste it into our, make sure the rotation in Y is selected on both of your driver and your driven, and paste that in, select your driven, paste it into Y, set a key. Select your driven, find your negative value, which is about, I would say, right there. Copy it, paste that value into your center back IK control, select your driven, and paste that value in, set a key. So now we should have our Y working, but we don't because I accidentally selected X in my controllers. So just hit undo. There we go. So this should still work. Yes, it does. Let's set that to 0. That's why you want to make sure you have these guys selected properly. Okay, so we select our driven, find our positive value, which I'm going to go about right there, copy it, go to our IK, select the Y, paste it, select our driven, select Y, paste the Y value, and set a key. Then we want to go back, find the negative value, which should be close to the same thing. Here I'm going to go negative 55-ish. Copy that, go to our back control, paste it, select our driven, make sure both Y's are still selected, paste that value into our Y, and hit key. So now if we select our back control, select Y, we can rotate in Y. And 0 that out. So now we want to do the same thing in Z. And for this, I usually go to my front view so I can see things better. Go to Z, find the value all the way over that side, copy it, select my back control, paste it, make sure that's on Z, select my driven, make sure that's on Z, and paste that value into my Z rotational axis and hit key. Select my driven, find my other side, which is about right there, copy it, go to my back control, paste it, select my IKs, paste that value into the rotate Z, and make sure they're both selected properly and hit key. So at this point you can now close the set driven key window and test out your back controller, and everything should be working. Yep, and yep. There we go. So now what we're going to do is create a global control for the hips, for the whole upper body. And to do that, I want to create another control curve, and I'm going to use the special and use the cog. And there it is down here at the bottom. Kind of hard to see. So I'm going to scale it up and position it. There we go. And what I want to do is actually snap it to my root joint. There we go. Maybe scale it down ever so slightly, so it's not so big. And we want to name it, color it, and freeze your transformations, delete your history, all that good jazz. I'm not going to worry too much about centering the pivot because it should already be, for the most part, centered. Okay, so I'm going to pause the video and take care of that. Okay, so before we connect this guy up, I do want to come in here and get rid of all the channels that we're not going to use. So you can do that, just select, control select, and lock and hide. And do that to the next one. Just kind of clean these up a little bit, because we're only rotating with those controls. We are not translating them. There we go. And that one's good. And this one is actually going to be only, we'll worry about that later. So I want to go in here and color them to my red color. There we go. That looks good. And I want to turn those off. There. Okay. So now I want to set up the hip control, which is actually going to be renamed, I'm sorry, to root control. And this guy is going to control just the translation of the hips, while this guy is controlling the rotation of the hips. So we have two separate controls. It just makes things a little bit cleaner, a little bit easier for the control. Okay, so to set up our control here, we want to parent our hip to our control by hitting P. So we select the child, then we select the parent and hit P. And with that, we can translate our character around, make him dance. Okay, so then what we want to do is, or actually what we're going to do is, let's see, unparent him twice, so that hopefully our hip center is not controlling our hip anymore. And you can unparent by just selecting the child and hitting Shift P as in parent, and that will unparent it. And then now we want to go in here and actually select our hip joint, shift select our controller, and hit P. So then he is actually controlling that, which is cool. That still controls that. Okay, so now if we were to parent our root control to our hip center, our hip center has this translate data over here, and our hip control or our root control will actually inherit that translational data. So our character will pop up, which we do not want. So to fix that and to make sure that all of our channels stay clear when we select it, we are going to group this controller. So select the controller, go to modify or edit and group. And then you can call this center underscore root control underscore group. So we know what it is. And then we're going to need our outliner for this next bit. So now we go to, we select our child, which is our group, and then we shift select the parent, which is our hip control, and we hit P. So now if our character were to take a step, the hip root control follows, which is exactly what we want. So the one thing we can do is we can now clean up some of our attributes here, like our group. We can ungroup our text. We don't need that. Or I'm sorry, actually we do need that. My apologies. What we do need is to parent these to our root controller. So if we select both of these, actually R is empty. That's fascinating. There we go. That's right. Okay. So I just had to adjust my pivot. For some reason it popped over there. I'm not sure why, but it's neither here nor there. So we select both of our knee controls, shift select our parent, and hit P. So now our knee controls follow the parent. We're going to do the same thing to this bottom box, parent, and same thing to this back control and parent. So now if our character takes a step, all of his controls follow, which is exactly what we want. Okay, like so. Now this guy is empty, so we can delete him, and now we are all set. We have all of our back controls, our hip, our root control. We can bend our character down, point our knees out, like so. We can make him do all sorts of cool stuff. So later on we will add the arm controls and start doing some stuff with the face and stuff like that. But that's it for this video. Thank you.